The golden light of the restaurant's chandeliers cast everything in a warm glow, making the crystal glasses shimmer and the silverware gleam like promises. I adjusted my dress, the navy blue one I'd bought specifically for tonight, and checked my phone again. 7:47 p.m. Mom and Dad's 30th wedding anniversary dinner was supposed to start at 7:30, and I'd been sitting alone at this table for 2, watching the waiter refill my water glass with increasingly sympathetic glances. My parents, my sister Emma, and I were supposed to celebrate 3 decades of marriage at Chez Laurent, the French restaurant where my parents had their first date. I'd driven 3 hours from my apartment in the city, taken time off work, and even bought them a vintage wine from 1994, their wedding year, that had cost me nearly 2 weeks' grocery budget. At 8:15, my phone finally buzzed. "Sorry, honey. Change of plans. Emma suggested we do something more intimate. Just immediate family tonight. Rain check? Love you. -- mom." I stared at the text message until the words blurred. Just immediate family. As if I wasn't immediate family. As if I wasn't their daughter, too. The waiter approached tentatively. "Miss, would you like to order or—" "I'll take the check for the water," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I won't be staying." The drive home was a haze of highway lights and radio static. I kept replaying the message, each word cutting deeper. Emma had suggested something more intimate. Emma, who was 26 to my 28, who had moved back home after college and never left, who worked part-time at a boutique while I'd been grinding through medical school and residency. Emma, who somehow always managed to position herself as the favorite child without anyone ever acknowledging it outright. I was exhausted from a double shift at the hospital and had specifically requested tonight off, something I rarely did. But family was supposed to be worth it. Family was supposed to show up. When I got home to my small apartment, I threw my purse on the counter harder than necessary, sending my keys clattering across the tile. I changed into sweatpants and opened a bottle of cheap wine, the kind that cost less than the appetizers at Chez Laurent. I was 3 glasses in when I made the mistake of checking Instagram. There it was, posted just 20 minutes ago. A family photo at what looked like an upscale steakhouse. Mom in her burgundy dress, Dad in his best suit, and Emma glowing in a white silk top I'd never seen before. The caption read, "Celebrating 30 beautiful years with our amazing parents. Some milestones deserve intimate celebrations. Our family blessed our 30 years. But what made my breath catch wasn't the exclusion, though that stung like salt in an open wound. It was what was on Emma's wrist, a gleaming Cartier watch, the kind I'd seen in magazines and dreamed about, but could never afford on a resident's salary. The gold caught the restaurant's lighting, perfectly, and she'd positioned her hand deliberately to show it off. I zoomed in on the photo until I could read the caption Emma had tagged the location with, #, new Cartier #, grateful #, spoiled. A $15,000 watch. I knew because I'd been saving for one just like it, checking the website obsessively during my few free moments. It was going to be my reward for finishing residency, my symbol of finally making it. I'd been putting aside $50 here and there for 2 years, and I had maybe $800 saved. They'd given Emma a watch that cost more than my car, and they'd given it to her while deliberately excluding me from their anniversary celebration. I set my wine glass down and stared at the photo until my eyes burned. In it, my parents looked happier than I'd seen them in years. Emma was radiant, her arm around Dad, the watch glinting like a small sun on her wrist. They looked complete, like they were exactly who they wanted to be, without anyone missing from the picture. The comments were already rolling in. Family friends, cousins, college friends of Emma's, all gushing about how beautiful they looked, how sweet the celebration was, how lucky Emma was. Mrs. Henderson from down the street had written, "Where's Sarah? Working again?" with a sad face emoji. Emma had responded, "She couldn't make it. You know how busy doctors are." Couldn't make it, as if I'd been invited and declined, as if I'd chosen work over family, instead of being deliberately excluded after driving 3 hours and sitting alone at a restaurant table like an idiot. I screenshotted the photo and the comments, my hands shaking with something that felt like rage and heartbreak mixed into a toxic cocktail. Then I did what any self-respecting person would do. I called my best friend Maya and proceeded to drink the rest of the bottle while ranting about the situation. They gave her a $15,000 watch, Maya. $15,000! Do you know what I could do with $15,000? I could pay off my credit cards. I could put a down payment on a better apartment. I could buy a car that doesn't sound like it's dying every time I start it. That's seriously messed up, Maya agreed. But Sarah, you know how your parents are with Emma? She's always been the golden child. But a Cartier watch? And excluding me from their anniversary dinner to give it to her? What did I do wrong? I became a doctor, Maya. I save lives for a living. I work 16-hour days. I haven't taken a real vacation in 3 years, and I still make time for family events. What more do I need to do to matter to them? You don't need to do anything more. They're being awful, and I'm sorry. After Maya and I hung up, I sat in the dark of my living room, still in my sweatpants, staring at that Instagram photo. The more I looked at it, the more details I noticed that made everything worse. The restaurant looked expensive, certainly more expensive than Chez Laurent, where I'd been told they'd originally planned to go. Emma's outfit was new and clearly costly. Dad's watch was new too, I realized, looking closer. They'd gone shopping. This had been planned. This wasn't a spontaneous change of plans. This was a deliberate choice to exclude me from what was obviously a gift-giving celebration. They'd probably bought Emma the watch days or weeks ago, planned this dinner, and constructed an elaborate lie to keep me away from it. But why? I picked up my phone and scrolled through recent family interactions, looking for clues. There was the text exchange from last month when I'd had to cancel Sunday dinner because I'd been called in for an emergency surgery. Mom had been understanding, but there had been an edge to her voice when she'd called to check that I was okay. "Emma's here," she'd said. "She made your grandmother's recipe for pot roast. We really missed you." There was the time Emma had called me crying about her latest breakup, and I'd been too exhausted after a 30-hour shift to give her the emotional support she'd wanted. I'd listened, but I'd probably sounded distracted. She'd ended the call with a sharp, "Never mind, I'll call Mom." There was my birthday last month when they'd taken me to dinner at a chain restaurant while Emma got a surprise party at the house for hers, complete with catering and a professional photographer. The pattern was becoming clear, and it made me feel sick. Somewhere along the way, my dedication to my career had been reframed as a character flaw. My absence due to work, which was saving lives for God's sake, had been interpreted as choosing career over family. Emma's availability, her constant presence in their lives, had made her the good daughter, while I'd become the distant one who only showed up when convenient. Except it wasn't convenient. Nothing about my schedule was convenient. I fought to make time for family events, often at the expense of sleep or my own mental health. But because I couldn't always be there, because my job demanded sacrifices, I'd been demoted in their affections. And now they'd made it official with a $15,000 watch and a family photo that might as well have had "Sarah Not Wanted" written across the bottom. I spent that night lying awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling something calcify inside my chest. By morning, I had made a decision. If they wanted to play family favorites, I could play too. The plan came to me during my lunch break the next day, sitting in the hospital cafeteria and absently stirring yogurt while scrolling through my phone. I'd been looking at the Instagram photo again, torturing myself with the details, when I noticed something I'd missed the night before. The restaurant they'd gone to, Antonelli's, was the same place where Emma's ex-boyfriend Jake worked as a manager. Jake, who she'd dated for 2 years before he'd broken up with her 6 months ago. Jake, who she still stalked on social media and cried about to anyone who would listen. Jake, who she'd specifically asked me to help her avoid when we'd gone out for drinks a few weeks ago because she wasn't ready to see him with his new girlfriend. My parents had taken Emma to the restaurant where her ex-boyfriend worked, probably without knowing. But Emma definitely knew, which meant she'd endured an entire evening of potential awkwardness and embarrassment just to exclude me from their celebration. That's when I had my first truly vindictive thought. Jake and I had gone to high school together. We'd been friends long before he'd dated Emma, and we'd maintained a casual friendship even during their relationship. He was a good guy who'd broken up with Emma because, in his words, she was too dependent on her parents and never seemed to want to grow up or be independent. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found his number. "Hey, Jake! This is random, but I was wondering if you might want to grab coffee sometime this week. I'm finally getting some time off and wanted to catch up with old friends." He responded within an hour. "Sarah, of course. I'd love to catch up. How about Thursday afternoon?" "Perfect. Fair warning. Emma doesn't know we're meeting up, and I'd prefer to keep it that way. Family drama, you know how it is." Say no more. See you Thursday. Phase 1 of my plan was simple: reconnect with Jake. Not romantically. I wasn't interested in him that way, and I wasn't cruel enough to use him like that. But Emma didn't need to know that. Emma, who checked his Instagram daily and would inevitably see if we started interacting publicly. Thursday's coffee meeting went better than I'd expected. Jake was funny and kind, and we fell into easy conversation about work, life, and shared memories from high school. When I casually mentioned that I'd been excluded from my parents' anniversary dinner, he was appropriately outraged. "That's awful, Sarah. You know, Emma was there that night. I saw her when she came in. She looked miserable the entire time, kept checking her phone. I figured she was texting you." "She was probably texting her friends about the watch she got," I said, and filled him in on the Cartier situation. Jake whistled low. 15 grand? That's more than I make in 3 months. Your parents really went all out." "For Emma, yeah. I'm sorry." "That's really unfair." Before we parted ways, I asked if he'd like to grab dinner the following week. "As friends," I clarified, "but maybe we could go somewhere with good lighting for photos. I've been wanting to update my Instagram with something other than hospital cafeteria food." He laughed and agreed. Our dinner was at a trendy new restaurant downtown, and Jake was game when I suggested we take a few photos together. Nothing romantic, just 2 friends enjoying good food and each other's company. But I made sure to post the best one, where we were both laughing at something he'd said, looking genuinely happy and comfortable together. I tagged him and added the location, then wrote a simple caption: "Sometimes the best catch-ups are with old friends." "Thanks for the laughs, Jake." The notification that Emma had viewed my Instagram story came within 10 minutes. Then another view. Then another. Phase 1 was complete. Phase 2 required more patience. Over the next 2 weeks, Jake and I genuinely became closer friends. We texted regularly, grabbed lunch a few times, and I posted occasional photos of our hangouts. Nothing coupley, nothing that crossed any lines, but enough to create a narrative of 2 people who were spending increasing amounts of time together. Emma's social media behavior became increasingly erratic. She started posting cryptic quotes about betrayal and family loyalty. She shared articles about sisters who steal from each other and photos of herself looking wistfully into the distance. The Cartier watch appeared in every single photo, positioned prominently like a talisman. I pretended not to notice. Meanwhile, I was working on Phase 3, the financial investigation. It had occurred to me that a $15,000 impulse purchase was unusual for my parents. They were comfortable but not wealthy, and Dad had always been careful with money. When Emma and I were kids, big purchases were discussed for weeks beforehand. The family car was always bought used, vacations were planned and budgeted for months in advance, and restaurant meals were special occasions. Where had they gotten $15,000 to spend on a watch? I started casually asking questions during our occasional phone calls. When Mom mentioned that they were thinking of redoing the kitchen, I asked how they were planning to pay for it. "Well, we've been saving," she said vaguely, "and we might take out a small home equity loan." When Dad mentioned that they were looking into a new car for Emma, her current one was apparently unreliable, I asked if they were planning to buy new or used. "We'll see what makes sense financially," he said, but there was something evasive in his tone. The breakthrough came when I was visiting them for Sunday dinner 2 weeks after the anniversary debacle. Emma was there, naturally, wearing the Cartier watch and a new designer handbag I didn't recognize. During dinner, Dad mentioned that they'd had to cancel their planned vacation to Europe. "The timing just doesn't work out," Mom said quickly when I asked why. "We have other priorities right now," Dad added, glancing at Emma. That's when I understood. They hadn't saved up $15,000 for Emma's watch. They'd used their Europe vacation fund. They'd sacrificed their own dreams, their own plans, to buy Emma an extravagant gift. And they'd excluded me from the presentation because they knew I'd ask questions they didn't want to answer. They knew it was financially irresponsible. They knew it was unfair. They'd done it anyway, and they'd hidden it from me, because they were ashamed of their favoritism, but not ashamed enough to stop indulging in it. I excused myself to use the bathroom and sat on the edge of the bathtub, hands shaking with rage. They'd canceled their dream vacation, something they'd been planning and saving for since I was in college, to buy Emma a watch she'd wear to brunch and yoga classes and shopping trips, while they stayed home instead of seeing the Louvre and walking along the Seine. That night, I refined my plan. Phase 4 was about timing and social media strategy. I'd been documenting my friendship with Jake carefully, creating a subtle but clear narrative arc. Now I needed to escalate at precisely the right moment for maximum impact. The opportunity came 2 weeks later, Emma's 27th birthday party. I'd been invited naturally, though the invitation had come via text rather than the cute printed cards Emma usually sent for her events. The party was at my parents' house, with catering and decorations that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best dress and the vintage Cartier watch I'd bought on eBay using the last of my savings. It wasn't the same model as Emma's. Mine was older, more delicate, clearly vintage rather than new. But it was unmistakably Cartier, and it had cost me nearly $2,000 I couldn't afford to spend. Emma noticed it immediately. "Oh, that's a pretty watch," she said, her voice tight. "Where did you get it?" "It was a gift," I said vaguely, adjusting it on my wrist. "From someone special." I let her draw her own conclusions. Throughout the party, I made sure the watch was visible in every photo, every conversation. When people complimented it, I smiled mysteriously and said it was from a very thoughtful friend. When Emma's friends asked about it, I mentioned that vintage pieces often meant more than new ones because of the thought and effort that went into finding them. Meanwhile, I posted subtle Instagram stories throughout the evening. A photo of my outfit with the watch visible. A mirror selfie in my parents' bathroom showing the watch's elegant profile. A group photo where Jake had commented, with heart eyes emojis on my previous posts. Emma's mood deteriorated visibly as the evening progressed. By the time we were cutting the cake, she was snapping at people and constantly checking her phone. When one of her friends admired my watch and asked where I'd gotten it, Emma interrupted. "It's probably fake," she said loudly. "Sarah's always been good at making cheap things look expensive." The conversation stopped. Everyone stared. Mom and Dad looked mortified. "Emma," Mom said sharply, "that's enough." But I just smiled. "Actually, it's real." "But you're right that I'm good at finding value. I guess I learned that from being financially responsible." The implication hung in the air like smoke. Emma's face went red, then white. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing at all. Just that." Some people save for the things they want, and others. I shrugged and took a sip of my wine. Well, others are lucky enough to have parents who'll sacrifice their own dreams to buy them expensive gifts. "Sarah!" Dad's voice was warning. "What?" "It's wonderful that you canceled your Europe trip to buy Emma that beautiful watch. Really selfless parenting." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but they were angry tears, not sad ones. "You're jealous," she said. "You've always been jealous that Mom and Dad love me more." "Emma," Mom gasped, but I laughed, actually laughed. "You know what? You're right, I was jealous. For about a day, I was really hurt that they'd exclude me from your gift presentation and lie to me about it. But then I realized something important." I stood up, smoothing down my dress. "People who love you don't make you feel like you have to earn their affection. They don't play favorites with their children. They don't sacrifice their own happiness to enable one child's materialism while making the other child feel unwanted." I picked up my purse and keys. "And they don't lie to you and exclude you from family events because they're ashamed of their choices." "Where are you going?" Mom asked, her voice small. "Home. But don't worry, I know you won't miss me. You'll still have your favorite daughter and her $15,000 watch." I paused at the door. "Oh, and Emma?" "Jake says hi." "We've been spending a lot of time together lately. He's been very supportive during this whole family situation." I left before anyone could respond, but I heard Emma's sharp intake of breath as the door closed behind me. The fallout was swift and brutal. Emma called me 17 times that night. When I finally answered, she was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "How could you do this to me?" "Jake is my ex-boyfriend." "Jake is my friend," I said calmly. "He was my friend before he was your boyfriend, and he's my friend now. We're not doing anything wrong. You're doing it to hurt me. I'm living my life, Emma. The same way you lived yours when you convinced Mom and Dad to exclude me from their anniversary dinner so you could get your watch without any awkward questions. That's not what happened, isn't it? Then why did you lie and tell people I couldn't make it instead of admitting I wasn't invited?" Silence. "You wanted to hurt me," I continued, "and you succeeded. But I'm not going to sit around feeling sorry for myself while you play victim. I'm going to build relationships with people who actually want me around." She hung up on me. Mom called an hour later. "Sarah, we need to talk about what happened tonight." "Do we?" "Because it seems like everything that needed to be said has been said. You embarrassed your sister in front of all her friends. Emma embarrassed herself when she called my watch fake in front of everyone. I just corrected the record. You know that's not what I mean, this thing with Jake. Jake and I are friends, Mom. We're adults, we enjoy each other's company, and Emma doesn't get to control who I spend time with just because she dated him 2 years ago. But you know it hurts her. And excluding me from your anniversary dinner hurt me. Lying to me hurt me. Spending my inheritance on Emma's watch while canceling your own vacation hurt me. but nobody seemed particularly concerned about my feelings then. Your inheritance? Mom's voice was sharp. That's what it is, isn't it? Money you were planning to leave to Emma and me someday, spent early on Emma because she's the favorite child. I just want to make sure I understand the family dynamics correctly. The conversation ended with Mom hanging up on me too. Dad tried a different approach the next day, calling during my lunch break. Sarah, your mother and I love you very much. Do you? Because your actions suggest otherwise. That's not fair. Neither is lying to your daughter and excluding her from family celebrations. Neither is spending your vacation money on an expensive gift for one child while the other child works 16-hour days and lives paycheck to paycheck. You've always been independent. I've had to be independent because you made it clear that Emma is your priority. Every family decision, every holiday plan, every financial choice gets made with Emma's needs first. I've been accommodating that for years because I thought it was temporary, that eventually you'd see how unfair it was. But the watch and the dinner made it clear that this is permanent. We're proud of you, Sarah. You're successful, you're accomplished. But I'm not your favorite. And you know what, Dad? That's fine. But don't lie to me about it anymore. Don't pretend that you're being fair or that I'm imagining things. Own your choices. What do you want from us? The question caught me off guard because I realized I'd been asking myself the same thing. What did I want? I want you to acknowledge that you've treated Emma and me differently our entire lives. I want you to admit that excluding me from your anniversary was deliberate and hurtful. And I want you to stop acting like my career success means I don't need or deserve family support. And if we do that, then maybe we can start rebuilding our relationship on honest ground instead of pretending everything is fine when it's not. Dad was quiet for a long moment. I need to think about what you've said. That's all I can ask for. The next few weeks were tense but illuminating. Emma continued to spiral on social media, posting increasingly dramatic content about betrayal and family loyalty. She unfriended me on Facebook and blocked me on Instagram, which was fine by me. Our parents tried various approaches to fix the situation, ranging from guilt trips to bribes to demands that I apologize for causing drama. I held firm. I'd done nothing wrong by being friends with Jake, and I wasn't going to apologize for calling out their favoritism. Jake, for his part, was supportive and understanding when I explained the full situation to him. Your family dynamics sound really unhealthy, he said over dinner one evening. Emma was like this when we dated too, always playing victim when she didn't get her way, always running to your parents for support instead of handling things herself. I'm not trying to hurt her, I said. I just got tired of being hurt and doing nothing about it. You don't have to justify yourself to me. You've been nothing but honest about our friendship, and Emma doesn't own me just because we used to date. She thinks she does. Emma thinks she owns everything and everyone. It's why our relationship didn't work out. The breakthrough came 6 weeks after Emma's birthday party. Dad called and asked if I could come to dinner, alone. Your mother and I have been talking about what you said. We want to discuss some things with you. I almost declined, but something in his voice made me reconsider. Just the three of us? Yes, Emma doesn't know about this conversation. That was intriguing enough to make me say yes. I arrived at my parents' house the following Sunday to find them both sitting at the kitchen table with cups of coffee and serious expressions. Mom looked like she'd been crying recently. Thank you for coming, Dad said. We know things have been difficult lately. That's one way to put it. Mom spoke up. We've been thinking about what you said about favoritism, and we want you to know that we never intended to make you feel less loved. But you did make me feel less loved. whether you intended it or not. We know, and we're sorry. The apology surprised me, but I waited for the but that usually followed such statements from my parents. Instead, Dad continued, "You were right about the watch. And the dinner. We knew it was unfair, and we did it anyway because—" He paused, looking at Mom. "Because Emma asked us to," Mom finished quietly. "She said she wanted it to be special, just the three of us. She said you'd probably be too busy anyway, and that it would be awkward if you were there because you'd ask questions about the money. So you knew I'd disapprove." "We knew it was financially irresponsible," Dad admitted. "But Emma had been so sad about Jake, and she saw the watch in a store window and loved it so much. You spent your vacation money to cheer up your adult daughter after a breakup." "Yes." "While lying to me about it." "Yes." The simple acknowledgement was more than I'd expected. "Why are you telling me this now?" Mom and Dad exchanged a look. "Because Emma has been—" Mom struggled for words. "Unbearable," Dad supplied. "Ever since her birthday party, she's been calling us constantly, demanding that we choose between you and her. She wants us to cut off contact with you because of your friendship with Jake." "And what did you tell her?" "We told her that's not how families work," Mom said firmly. "We told her that she doesn't get to control who you're friends with, and that demanding we choose between our daughters is unacceptable." I felt something tight in my chest begin to loosen. "How did she respond to that?" "Not well," Dad said dryly. "She's been sending us articles about toxic family members and setting boundaries with unsupportive relatives. She's also been hinting that she might move out and cut contact if we don't support her. She's trying to manipulate you." "We know." "And we're not going to let her." Mom reached across the table and took my hand. "Sarah, we've made a lot of mistakes in how we've handled things with you and Emma. We've enabled her dependency and made you feel like you had to be perfect to earn our love. That's not fair, and it's not healthy for any of us." "We want to do better," Dad added. "We want to have a real relationship with you, not one where you feel like you have to compete for our attention." I felt tears prick my eyes for the first time in weeks. What does that look like practically? It looks like honest conversations. It looks like acknowledging when we mess up instead of pretending everything is fine. It looks like making decisions based on what's fair and reasonable instead of who complains the loudest. And it looks like you not having to prove yourself constantly, Mom added. "You're our daughter. You deserve our love and support, regardless of your career success or how often you can attend family events." We talked for 2 hours that afternoon, covering years of accumulated resentments and misunderstandings. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when old patterns of defensiveness crept back in, but we pushed through them. By the time I left, I felt lighter than I had in months. "What about Emma?" I asked as I was gathering my purse to leave. "Emma is going to have to learn that the world doesn't revolve around her," Dad said. "We love her, but we're not going to enable her manipulation anymore. If she wants to be part of this family, she needs to learn how to treat people with respect. Even if that means she follows through on her threats to cut contact." Mom's face was sad, but resolved. "Even then, we won't choose between our daughters, but we also won't allow one daughter to dictate the terms of our relationship with the other." Over the following months, our family slowly began to rebuild. Mom and Dad started therapy to work on their enabling patterns and communication skills. They also started putting money back into their vacation fund, planning a trip to Europe for the following year. Emma initially escalated her manipulation tactics, alternately threatening to cut contact and begging them to take her side. When those approaches failed, she tried recruiting extended family members to pressure our parents into fixing the situation. But Mom and Dad held firm, refusing to engage with her dramatics while still expressing their love for her. Eventually, Emma seemed to realize that her tactics weren't working. She moved into her own apartment, something she should have done years earlier, and began slowly rebuilding her relationship with our parents on healthier terms. She never apologized to me directly, but she did stop blocking me on social media and began liking my photos occasionally. Jake and I remained friends, and Emma eventually accepted that our friendship wasn't a conspiracy against her. She started dating someone new and seemed genuinely happier once she wasn't living at home and depending on our parents for emotional regulation. As for the Cartier watch, I still wear mine occasionally, though it's lost some of its symbolic power. It reminds me less of revenge now and more of the importance of standing up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable for everyone involved. The real victory wasn't in hurting Emma or proving a point to my parents. It was in learning that I deserved better treatment and being willing to demand it, even when it meant risking relationships I valued. Sometimes love requires boundaries, and sometimes the people who claim to love you need to be reminded that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice expressed through actions. Our family still isn't perfect. There are still moments of old patterns and lingering resentments. But we're honest now in ways we never were before, and that honesty has created space for genuine love to grow. Emma and I may never be close friends, but we're sisters who can coexist without active hostility. Our parents are learning to show love through equity rather than indulgence. And me? I learned that revenge, when it's really about justice and self-respect, doesn't always feel like victory in the moment. Sometimes it just feels like finally being able to breathe freely, like coming home to yourself after being lost for a long time. The $15,000 watch is still on Emma's wrist, and my vintage Cartier is still on mine. But now they're just watches, marking time that moves forward instead of backward, toward a future where love doesn't require scorekeeping and family doesn't mean sacrificing your self-worth for peace. That, I think, is worth more than any watch could ever be.